And we're live. Sans sexy mic. You had all your nice mics set up, didn't you? Yeah, it must be my fault. To be fair, I do have a ridiculous setup over here. So I've got a second monitor over there right now that's in a vertical stance for dev geeks, which is just showing the live stream. And then I've got another monitor there. I've got a second webcam there, which you can see, but they can't see. And then I've got my actual cam, which is there. And then you coming through. And then the Rodecaster Pro that's over there. And then this mic. Yeah, I went a little all in on podcasting. Yeah. So how are you doing? How's Christmas been? Actively working to avoid burnout because you feel close to it. Yeah. Yeah, that's the other. In fact, I spoke about this on one of the other episodes. That's the other side of the whole Twitter thing that no one really tells you, that you've got to post a lot. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but you've got to post a lot and maintain it. And if you don't, you get punished, like you said. Yeah. Oh yeah. And I noticed that's kind of, you've started with loads of quips and stuff like that, bringing out the funny side of Joey a little bit. You didn't used to do that before. I like it. Mm. It is a tough balance. And when I first started, in fact, I really started in January, a little bit like you, really taking Twitter seriously, I guess. And in the early days, I was mega serious about it. I didn't shitpost or meme anything or post any jokes or anything like that, because I was, I don't know, maybe a little bit scared, of showing too much, or I don't know. But then over the last 3 or 4 months, probably a similar timeline to you again, actually, I just kind of said, fuck it. And I'll just enjoy my time, because I went through a little bit of a mini burnout with it as well, where I've grown 2,000 followers, you've grown 15,000. So my burnout is much less, but it's still it's the same problem that you face. You end up using Twitter too much. And I got to the point where I thought, is it worth it? Is it worth it to be spending all this time on Twitter? And I got to the point where I'm going to write 10 tweets a day, and I always have done, but I wasn't really enjoying it anymore. So if I'm not enjoying it, I've got to change something. So I just started not being so strict with not showing me, I guess. And that was the best thing I've ever done. Definitely. Just being myself more. Yeah. Mm. Mm. Yeah, there is. And I think I've tried to find that balance between being stupid or daft and also providing good value. And it is always a tough balance to do it. But the kind of the way I've approached it is to try and remember that, a tweet's a tweet. It's only one tweet. Half of your audience, well, way less than half of your audience aren't going to see it. So as long as you maybe follow it up with something good afterwards, or write a really good thread, or whatever, you're not really going to lose that much by having fun. And pretty much exclusively now for me, when it comes to replying to anybody's tweets, I always shitpost. I pretty much never write a serious reply to anybody anymore. And it goes for the same thing as well when people reply to me, because I don't know if you've seen this as well. You'll have seen this way more than I have, but reply guys have increased massively on Twitter. For people who don't know what reply guys are the people who basically just reply to your tweet but just reword it in a different way, and you end up with 5 or 6 people just rewording your tweet. And when I get that now, I just reply to them stupid, and I do it to everybody. Well, what do you say back to it? I mean, 100%, yes. Or there is like literally nothing to say. It doesn't add to the conversation at all. Also, bonus points for saying GIF right. Oh, how to say GIF? I still say GIF because I prefer GIF. Intellectually, I prefer GIF, and I prefer the sound of GIF, so I still say GIF. And also there's I don't know if you've got Jif, but Jif is like a cleaning solution in the UK. Oh, so you've got, that's even worse. That's similar but worse. Although you could probably use it as a cleaning solution as well. Yeah. So I just call it GIF because there's a popular cleaning product called Jif. Anyway, I wanted to talk about a couple of things, and the first thing I want to mention is we'll probably talk about Twitter a lot, but the first thing I want to mention is recently you were called Improvement Geek, and now you've changed your name to Psypreneur. Why did you change your name to Psypreneur? Mm. Huh. I've just had a thing saying people can't hear you. Let me have a look. This has not gone well, this one, has it? We've had loads of technical problems. Maybe it was my problem, not yours. Right. Just try saying something. You're not coming through. You're coming through to me. I can hear you. But you're not being outputted. We'll chop this out for the podcast version. Maybe I'll leave it in. Say something again.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Ah, there we go. Oh dear. I've just had like a couple of people say, "Can't hear Joey, can't hear Joey." So they've been listening to me for 5 minutes, and you just going.
Nice.
Right. So repeat the Psypreneur thing.
Okay. So I chose the name Psypreneur and rebranded because it better fits what I'm doing with my business now. So I started as Improvement Geek in May of 2018. The name Improvement Geek came because I considered myself a geek. So I've always been a gamer. I was a computer engineer, programmer, was always a space nerd and that kind of a thing. So that's where the geek part came from. And then when I started my project and my eventual business, it was based around helping people improve with psychology and neuroscience. It was also a bit of an homage to my two main inspirations at the time. So, and I've never talked about this on Twitter actually. So those were Improvement Pill and Thomas Frank, also known as College Info Geek. So that all kind of worked out. I mean, this was a multi-day process coming up with this name. So I was the Improvement Geek for almost a year and a half. And then I had some people tell me that that wasn't the best name for various reasons. And then, I niched down to focusing on helping entrepreneurs and freelancers, founders, that kind of thing. And because I had played a lot of World of Warcraft, one of my skills that I developed was making names from mashing together words. So I mashed together psychology and entrepreneur, and it worked out. So here we are.
I like it. I liked Improvement Geek as well. I liked both the names, but there is something. It does feel a little bit World of Warcrafty, like it's a class, in World of Warcraft, a Psypreneur class. But
yep.
I like it. So you've been thinking a lot more about niching Improvement Geek down this year, then, I presume.
Yeah.
Taking it more seriously.
Yeah. So the history of Improvement Geek / Psypreneur, I started on YouTube on May 4th, 2018. And
do you still do YouTube videos?
I haven't done a YouTube video in almost a year, but sneak preview for your audience is that I'm actually going to restart doing YouTube soon.
Nice.
So I'm pretty excited about that. If you're familiar with Alex Becker and the videos that he's done, if you don't know Alex Becker, I highly recommend checking him out. But what I want to do is very inspired by the videos that he's created. So yeah, so I started on YouTube. I did a video every single week. They were highly edited, highly scripted, which isn't great. And they took about 10 to 15 hours a week.
Wow.
And yeah, I did that every single week for about 8 months. And it wasn't really getting anywhere. So I had about 300 subscribers. I would mostly like Facebook friends that I harassed into subscribing to me, and my mom. But I would spend all that time making a video and then put it out, and then it would get like 50 views. And it was just very disheartening. So after several months of that, I took a break early this year around January because I was about to move. And then for some reason decided to start taking my Twitter account seriously. So at the time, in January 19th, I think, I had 300 followers. I've had this account for years, but I've never really used it other than to say, hey, I put out a new video, but no one really followed me. So I started taking it seriously. I bought a couple Twitter guides, started growing my network, which is the most important thing. And then never really got back to YouTube because it felt like I got a lot more return on my investment on Twitter. Mm-hmm. And then experimented with a few different niches. I was really into productivity for a while. I was in a couple of groups that shouldn't have really been. And then I had a conversation with Jack Butcher one day a couple of months ago. And he read my pin tweet at the time, which was kind of my life story and about how I've, kind of transformed myself. And he was like, that's really good. You should use that. And so I started focusing more on transformation, like helping people transform their lives. And then from that, I niched that down to entrepreneurs. So helping them transform themselves, their productivity or their performance, and basically make more money or have more free time.
I'm always fascinated by this idea of taking Twitter seriously, and why people do it. And you kind of said, I decided to take Twitter seriously, and it's a big decision. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious, what was your inspiration behind it? In January, did you see Twitter as replacing the job you already had? Or was it just, I'm going to take Twitter seriously and see where it goes?
It feels like forever ago, but I honestly don't remember what really made that happen for me. I mean, because I had like my Twitter followers mostly people I went to school with, essentially, or dead accounts that I've met over the past 8 years. I think I tweeted a little bit, but it was very long form content, so I was basically tweeting paragraphs, which doesn't really fit Twitter. Somehow I came across Life Math Money, got his guide, met Jose Rosado and a few others. And then my favorite podcast, other than you, of course, Art of Charm, gave me a shout out on January 31st, I think. And that helped me get some followers.
Yeah.
And it was really motivated by the network and the people that I met. I mean, there's a few groups that I'm in now. Like there's some people who like make getting on Twitter every day fun. And I really think that for new accounts, they should really focus on growing their network, because that's what I've found has been the most important part.
And that's the kind of the underrated side of Twitter, isn't it, as well? That's the thing when I first started and I decided, right, I'm going to take Twitter seriously. I'm either on it or I'm off it permanently. I'm going to take it seriously. I never even considered the idea that it would turn into meeting people like you and meeting people like Jack Butcher. And by the way, Jack Butcher is the influence behind pretty much everybody on the internet right now, I think.
Yeah.
Meeting people like you and Jack and Robbie Crabtree and a million other people I couldn't even shout out on this. That's been the true power of Twitter for me. And you're completely right about that focus on building a network of people. I now feel like in January this year, I felt like I knew the only people I knew were within 20 miles of where I lived. Now this year, I know people globally, and I'm thankful to call them friends. You're completely right. That's the power of Twitter. I think we miss that sometimes.
Yeah, I've noticed when I spend time on other social media platforms, especially Reddit, they're very hostile towards Twitter. They talk about how Twitter is like a cesspool filled with hate and everything. The thing is, if that's your Twitter experience, then you're following the wrong people. You have to curate your feed. Like Twitter, the access that you have to incredible people is unparalleled. Like at this point, I'm convinced that Twitter is the best social media platform. Like others have their places for different purposes, but for networking, I really feel like Twitter is the best.
I completely agree. I've been on every other social network. I've used them all extensively. I've used some of them for my job in the design agency, and definitely Twitter, hands down, is the one. But I think what makes it so powerful, and what I don't think any of the other ones can touch, is this idea you can just jump into somebody's mind. You can, even when you put aside the networking stuff, even if you're not into the networking side, fair enough. But if you just say, right, I want to see inside the daily thoughts of a multi-million pound investor, or I want to see inside the mind of, I don't know, an ultra marathon runner, or literally whatever it is, there is somebody on Twitter with that specialist knowledge that are sharing it completely for free, sharing it daily in kind of nice little tidbits that you can actually consume and understand. It's really powerful like that.
Yeah, I mean, I was just talking to a guy this morning, just a few hours ago, actually, a guy that just started up his account and he's growing it. And he's a former restaurateur, lifelong chef, and he wants to share his knowledge about making tasty and fancy food, basically. And I was telling him, like, I can't think of anybody, other than fitness pros that are doing that kind of thing right now.
Yeah.
So it's going to be really cool to see him get his account growing so he can share that with people, because it's just like there's a space for that.
Do you think that's one of the most important things to work out if you're listening to this and you've seen that you've grown 15,000 followers this year? Do you think one of the most important things was niching down and being very specific?
Yeah, and that's something that I've talked to a lot of people about, in fact. So when you first start off, I did this exact same thing. When you first start off, you want to be general because you think, oh, if I want a big following, or if I want to make a lot of money, which isn't necessarily linked together, by the way, then I've got to appeal to the most people. The problem is that if you try to appeal to everyone, then you're not going to appeal to anyone. This is true in life as well. If you're just like white bread, basic, like no flaws whatsoever, you're not going to be interesting to anyone. No one's going to really care about what it is that you do. When you start niching down and focusing on something, then yeah, you may be appealing to less groups of people. Like basketball players aren't going to be interested in following me. They're not, I mean, they may be entrepreneurs, but not all of them are. But you're going to form a deeper connection with that person. So it's like for me, for example, instead of being a general performance coach, I'm a performance coach for entrepreneurs.
Mm.
So that implies that I know more about that kind of life and business and the challenges and struggles that go along with being successful in business, so that people who come to my profile that fit that criteria, they know that they get the sense, perhaps subconsciously, that I would be better able to help them than somebody who doesn't niche down in that way. So the more specific, basically, you're going more narrow to go deeper with your target audience.
How long did it take you to work it out?
About a year. Basically the entire time that I've had my Twitter account.
Yeah.
I finally niched down to entrepreneurs in the start of November, basically. And I remember you and I had a conversation a few months before that about how I was thinking about working with software engineers, programmers, because I've
Mm.
been a software engineer for a few years now and experimented with that. I thought it over and then decided to go a different way with it.
Do you think it was the best way for you to do it? To start broad and then niche down? If so, say I was starting an account tomorrow. Say I wanted to start a new account. Would you tell me? This is often a sticking point for a lot of people, and I think we might have different viewpoints on this. Would you tell somebody to start without a niche, or would you tell them to work out a niche and then start?
So I have a couple answers to that. One is it depends on what kind of results they're wanting. So if you're wanting fast growth versus if you're wanting long-term sustainable and then larger growth later on, that changes things. I think that if you're playing the long game, which you should be in business or social media, either one, you should be wanting to play the long game. And I would say niche down further from the start.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, but especially because when you're first starting your Twitter account, you don't have any followers, so you're not really tweeting to anybody. You need to be engaging. Don't be a reply guy, but you need to be engaging and providing value to the posts that others make.
But
So,
Joey, everybody's reply guys. Nobody's
yeah,
listening
well,
to this.
we kind of have to be at this point.
Yeah, I started in January with the very wide goal of just taking Twitter seriously, and I didn't know where that was going to end up. And I kind of had a rough idea of niche. I'm a designer. I was going to talk about design stuff. It's pretty much all I know.
Yeah.
And I also enjoy self-improvement and things like that and daily challenges, etc. And the only thing I set in January was I'm going to write 10 tweets every day. And to this day, knock on wood, I've got a very big wooden table, so I'm actually knocking on wood. To this day, I've done that pretty much every day. I've written 10 tweets. So and this has been a philosophy of mine for a very long time, my thought process on this kind of thing when you're trying to work out a niche is I don't think you should wait to start just because you don't know what you're starting. And I know that might sound a bit stupid, might maybe lead to wasted time, but for me, if I would have waited, because like you, I've only really worked out a kind of general idea of my niche probably this month or last month. Really only started focusing down to releasing a visual community, a design community, only just focused down to doing design type tutorials, and then fingers crossed going to be writing a design type book. So that's all really new for me. And if I would have waited to figure that out, and if I wouldn't have been writing the 10 tweets per day, I don't think I would have got to that point. So I still wouldn't have started. You know what I mean?
The time would have passed anyway.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah, exactly. The time would have passed, and I would have, because I wouldn't have had anything, I wouldn't have had 3,000 followers now. I would have still had 1,000 followers, just my friends that I'd built up over 12 years. I wouldn't have had the audience either to validate the ideas with. I haven't been super general with the way that I tweet. I do tend to stick to specific topics of what I know, which is design and doing things every day and consistency and stuff like that. But the switch of my content has definitely been more towards design now, and very much less about the kind of harsh truth type thing of consistency and blah, 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 because I got bored of all that kind of stuff, and it wasn't leading to anything that I could offer further down the line. So the bigger point I'm making really is that my attitude has always been that you should start even if you don't know what you're starting. And yeah, just do something.
Yeah. So there's a few benefits to that. One is that you're going to learn a lot from the process. You know, you may think that you want to, if you have a niche, you may think that you want to talk about Alaskan squirrels or something like that. And you have all these big plans of making an account based on that. And then you start tweeting about it and you're like, no, I don't really like all that. I get bored with it. You know, like what you were just saying about what you got bored with. And I've done a similar thing. You know, I dabbled with only talking about productivity content. And then I got really bored because it's like, I know a lot of other things that I can help people with that are related to helping them improve in their life and in their business. There's a lot to growing a social media platform and a lot to growing a business that's based on a social media platform. So the earlier that you start, the earlier you start getting that valuable experience. And that's the thing, is you can't gain experience in something through reading a Twitter growth guide or just following people without talking. You really need to jump in and get that experience yourself.
I think often some people have this idea that the thing that they're going to start has to be the thing that they're going to do until they're 90 years old.
Yeah.
So when they start it, they overthink it and think, right, I've got to get it perfect this time, because if I don't get it perfect this time, that's it. You know, that's the end of the road. But I think with Twitter specifically, that couldn't be further from the truth, right? You can easily set up a new account or rename the account or blitz it and start again.
Yeah. Well, another cool thing is that as your account gets bigger and people have known you for longer, they want to see other stuff from you. Like they want to see more of your personality. They want to see more of your interests. Like the other day I was out at a park and took a walk and I posted a picture like out for a walk at my favorite place, Piedmont Park in Atlanta. And I mean, that didn't get incredible engagement, but that's not what it was for. You know, I was sharing something about myself with my audience. And I think that people, and I've done this myself, but I think that some people get so focused on creating content and engaging and tweeting that they forget to also be people. But the thing is that the more of a person that you are, the more your audience is going to resonate with you. Like the more human you are, the more people are going to resonate with you. So it's really finding a balance that works for you, I guess, in that aspect.
It is a weird balance because it's almost like the less useful content you create, that sometimes that gets more engagement, and you feel a little bit of the hit of the dopamine rush of, oh, that got a lot of engagement, maybe I should make some more content about whatever that thing was. And then before you know it, you're writing 10 tweets a day that are nothing to do with the thing that you actually intended to start with. I think you're completely right on the personality thing. That was a big reveal for me. That was a big thing that kind of hit me between the eyes, because once you're enjoying it, once you're enjoying your time on Twitter, people can tell that. And the biggest compliment I got, I was on somebody else's podcast the other day, and they DM'd me afterwards saying, "You're exactly like the way that you tweet." And ideally, that's what you want, isn't it?
Right.
And because I think even when you niche down, there's still another 1,000 of you, whatever you are. There's still another 1,000 of you out there. The only differentiator is you. And if you're leaving the differentiator out, your personality, the way that you say things, the way that you do things, your thing of going on daily walks and recording the videos, all that kind of thing. If you leave those things out because you're worried that it might put some people off, there is like literally nothing to differentiate you from anybody else.
Right.
But
and then people are going to follow and support the options that are already there and have a bigger following than you, because that's just the way that humans work.
yeah, but on the flip side, the ironic side of it is that kind of content that isn't as polished, that isn't as that isn't as well thought out, is the hardest thing to do, because you're almost afraid of making it, because you're afraid of what people are going to say about you.
Yeah, it's like a Jack Butcher tweet that he put out a while back that was like just a quick video, and then he showed his camera roll, and it's got like 30 different things where he's tried to take it. Yeah. I feel that on my daily walk some days. Some days I do it in one take, and then some days it takes me 10 or 15 tries. And I rarely ever decide what my video for the day is going to be about until I walk out my door. Like, I get walking, and then I think about things that I can make a video about.
Yeah. I really like that pressure of making something daily and not thinking about the thing that you're going to make until the crunch point comes. We were just talking about it before we started this, wasn't we? About how you work better under pressure. We were talking specifically about speaking, but I'm the same. If I know I've got to get something done, you get it done to a good enough standard.
Right.
So I want to come across the thing that we've flirted around, which is this transformation that you went through. We've got to talk about this, because I remember seeing this on Twitter. So you posted this on August the 19th. I remember seeing it around that time. I'm looking at the tweet now, and this is the untold story of Joey. I had no idea about any of this, and the headline figure, and I'll let you fill in the bits in a second, is you put how I went from unofficially homeschooled, 370 pounds and pre-diabetic, zero social skills, to becoming an engineer from Georgia Tech, starting Improvement Geek, and losing 170 pounds, which is insane. Mm-hmm. Tell me about that. I don't even know where to start with that. I don't even know a pointed question to ask. I guess the pointed question is, what was the thing that made you do it? Why did you flip?
Being afraid that if I didn't start improving myself, I wouldn't have much time left. So in 2008 to 2010, I was over 370 pounds. I was pre-diabetic, and I had very low testosterone. When I would go out, we lived in Florida at the time, which is a very humid environment. And whenever I would go out and walk, I felt like garbage, like I had a hard time breathing and just could barely exercise at all. And I knew that if I didn't change something, then I might not have a whole lot of time left to change that. So I started experimenting with different ways to lose weight. I got a job as a construction worker, laying gas lines for a while, and just being outside away from World of Warcraft for most of the day helped me lose weight. And then I didn't really have a sustainable way of doing that, like a system or anything. So when I started college in 2012, I gained a lot of it back. I would typically regain 10 or 20 pounds every final season. And I went back up to over 300 there for a while in 2015-ish, and then started losing weight again. And that's actually, like, the whole weight loss battle is what led to me starting to study psychology, because I was stuck like 20 or 30 pounds away from my goal. And I started reading self-help books to figure out like how to get myself over that hump. And then I really quickly got addicted to self-help books, as a lot of people do. But I got tired of all the cliches and just nonsense. So I started reading about psychology and neuroscience, because I figured if I could understand how the engine worked, I could drive the car better, essentially. And then that led to me realizing I could use that information to help other people, and that's how Improvement Geek was born. But ultimately, that whole journey started because I was so tired of not having a life / hating my life. And I realized that I needed to make a change soon.
Mm. I I went through a similar journey as well. Um, but the catalyst for me was I used to have a physical job when I was a teenager, and then I got my first professional job, which was I was a designer. And then as soon as I got my first professional job, I used to eat like shit, and then I was sat down all day, and I continued eating like shit. And
Yeah.
then I put on, oh, I don't know, 5 stone, 6 stone, whatever that is in pounds, £100, something,
Wow.
maybe a bit less. Um, and I went through the same thing, and I don't think I ever got as far as maybe what you're saying, but there was still a realization for me. I wonder if you had the same. I had this realization one day where I got on the scales. I was 18 stone, 4 pounds. I'll never forget it. And from that day, that was it. I was a man possessed to lose weight, and nothing was going to stop me. I didn't understand any of it. Didn't know where I was going to start or anything. Did you have kind of the same thing? Like, this is like the cut-off point. This is the line in the sand, and nothing's going to stop me.
I don't remember exactly what the moment was, but I do remember that there was a summer where I was trying hard to get myself outside and go to walk and go exercise, like go play basketball. And I just couldn't do it. Like we lived at an apartment really close to a nice park in Florida, and I just couldn't do it. And then one day, I think I started making small changes first.
Yeah.
And then when I started making progress and started picking up momentum, that motivated me to keep it going. And then I wound up losing, I think, 117 pounds in 17 months. So
Wow.
I lost a lot of that weight really quickly. But like I said, I wasn't doing it sustainably. I didn't really know what I was doing. And then I started college and it kind of all fell apart. So over the next few years, it was a roller coaster up and down with my weight. And then it wasn't until 2016 where I started losing weight consistently because I was using systems like low carb and intermittent fasting and stuff like that,
Mm.
tracking my food. And then those things really helped me stay on path and help me keep my momentum going.
How do you think World of Warcraft fit into it? Do you see that as a bad thing or a good thing?
It was definitely a bad thing because I let myself get addicted to it. I actually downloaded the free trial of World of Warcraft in 2006 to prove to my girlfriend at the time that I wouldn't get addicted. And then I got addicted.
Do you still play it now? Have you gone back to it?
I've tried. It's thankfully the game is not what it used to be. So I've tried it off and on, and it's just there's no chance of me ever getting addicted to it again.
Where do you sit on the old video games thing? Do you enjoy playing video games, or do you see it as, like, it sometimes feels like on Twitter that it's the death that you're not allowed to play video games?
Well, see, the thing is, I think a lot of these hustlers are telling us not to watch Netflix while they're watching Netflix. So there's that. But I don't have a problem with video games. So I've actually tweeted this. Netflix and video games and all that stuff isn't the problem. Like our ability to moderate it is the problem sometimes.
Yeah.
So I still game occasionally. I love racing games. I love ruining people's day with Mario Kart. That came about because one of my roommates was very good at Smash and it hurt my feelings. So I turned Mario Kart into my game. But, RPG, stuff like that, I still play sometimes. But I have noticed kind of a mental struggle where whenever I play video games, I feel like I should be doing other stuff.
Mm.
And it's kind of the reverse of what a lot of people experience, where they get distracted from their work by video games. I get distracted by video games from my work. So like Twitter and not that Twitter's saying a whole lot because that's addictive in itself, but I should be reading, or I should be writing a new article and stuff like that. So like I'm totally fine with video games and I play them sometimes, but I find that I can't keep myself playing them long because I want to work on my business instead.
I used to play them all the time. I used to love playing them. I play them maybe once or twice a week now. I've literally got every console you can buy. Well, apart from the PS5 right now. So I'm mega into video games, but I barely get the chance to play them. And I think it's the flip, isn't it? When you find something that you really love doing, you want to do it, and it doesn't matter what's put in your path, what temptation is put in your path, you'll want to stick to doing it. But I think one of the underpinnings of all this, and the thing that isn't really talked about that much, and it's only really being talked about now in things like the Social Dilemma documentary on Netflix, is that there's two things really. When we get addicted to either video games or Netflix or Facebook or Twitter or whatever it is, we don't realize that they are designed to get us addicted.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, even now, still don't appreciate the fact that they are specifically designed to keep you on app, basically. Mm-hmm. Whether that is on app on a video game, whether that is on app on Netflix or Facebook or Twitter. And that's the really dangerous part for a lot of people, that they don't understand. Like my mum, for example, she's on Facebook all the time.
Yeah.
She doesn't understand that it is designed to keep her there. And until she understands that, you turn around one day and you look at your screen time on your phone and you see you've been on Facebook for 3 hours a day, which is ridiculous.
Yep. Yeah, that's the challenge. So, I'd said that these things aren't the problem. Your ability to moderate is the problem. But that's really what it comes down to, is you building up the ability in yourself to only spend a little bit of time on Facebook, or, I'm only going to play games for an hour tonight, and stuff like that. And unfortunately, because we're surrounded by things that are designed to be addictive, it can be really difficult to moderate. It's the same thing with sugar and alcohol. It can be very difficult to moderate those as well. And that's a challenging subject, because you can question, is it better for someone to never have those things at all, or to go through the challenge and the struggle of learning how to moderate these things?
Yeah, I think it's different for different people, isn't it? I've got a friend who to basically try and moderate his eating. He went from meat eating to vegan, to basically cut off most of the choices that he had.
Yeah.
Which is one way of doing it. And then other people might do intermittent fasting. So they can't eat past a certain time, or can't eat until a certain time. And they use that method to basically cut off the choices. I prefer to do it in moderation, but there is people out there, isn't there, who just have that personality. They have an addictive personality. And if you are one of those people and you are doing that thing, whatever it is you're addicted to, you literally can't do it at all, can you? You do it for 5 minutes and you want to do it for 10 hours. And the only way to get around that, for most people who are like that, is to cut it out of their life completely.
Yeah, that's something that is very common with Alcoholics Anonymous, for example, with people who go to AA who are drinkers, and apparently they tell you basically you can never drink again.
They tell you you're always an alcoholic, don't they?
Yeah, because you're always an alcoholic. And there's that's a whole other discussion, but they're a little bit onto something from a neurological perspective, because once something becomes a habit for you, just because you stop for a day doesn't mean you broke the habit. Habit formation and undoing a habit is a long process. So when you've been, for example, for me, playing World of Warcraft for years, just because I quit playing World of Warcraft for a week doesn't mean that I'm not an addict anymore. Those habits, those neural pathways are still there, ready to be accessed at any time. It takes a long time for those neural pathways to become unmyelinated, or kind of fade away in a sense. So it's no surprise that there are certain people who have been doing something that's bad, or not helpful for them for a long time, that struggle to get away from it. So that's why you need to either limit yourself and put up barriers, whether it's accountability or intermittent fasting or something like that, where you can moderate your intake or just cut it out for a long time. I mean, maybe that's the answer for some people.
I remember reading a book a while ago, quite a long time ago now. I think it was called The No Diet Diet. And that book talks about habits. The whole idea behind the book is that no point doing a diet, you need to change your habits. And when I read that, I was still trying to learn how to eat healthy and change these habits and things like that. And the book describes exactly what you were saying, that you can start eating healthy, but you need to change the habit. And it isn't just that individual habit. You've got to see them as a web of habits. That if, you know, it might be if you're overeating past 9 p.m. on a night, it might be because you're watching your favorite TV show, and the favorite TV show triggers the habit to eat Cheetos or whatever. And then after you've eaten Cheetos, you say, right, I want a glass of milk. So then you get a glass of milk. And then after the milk, you want a chocolate bar or whatever. And you've got to unpack the insane web of habits. And some of those things are more deep-seated than others. And that you've got to kind of keep whirring backwards over and over and over to find where the habit sits.
Yeah, so we have these things called keystone habits, and these can either work for us or against us. So for a lot of people, they have one certain habit that acts like a keystone that triggers other habits. So, you know, watching a TV show is a great example. So a lot of people will come home from a long day at work and then grab a 6-pack of beer and some Doritos and sit down and watch Queen's Gambit all night. And like that act of watching TV is their keystone habit. Whereas if they're not doing that and they're doing something different, then they're going to be a lot less likely to engage in those other harmful habits. But thankfully, as many things in psychology and neuroscience do, it works for you. It can work both ways. So it can work for you as well. For example, you can create positive keystone habits around exercise or weight loss or building a business, those kind of things. You just have to be intentional and structure these things so that, you know, when I put on my work clothes for the day, then I'm going to sit down and do work and not focus on my phone. That just off the top of my head, that kind of thing.
What was the keystone habit for you? Do you think it was World of Warcraft?
When I was unhealthy, yeah, it was World of Warcraft. That kept me glued to my chair for 16 hours a day.
Yeah. And then obviously you surround yourself by the food that you can quickly eat to continue playing World of Warcraft.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a fascinating topic. Have you got any good book recommendations for that, to look into that?
Atomic Habits. I've recommended that to thousands of people at this point. Atomic Habits by James Clear is by far the best. And The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg is pretty good as well. But Atomic Habits is the best.
Yeah, I've that pretty much comes up on every single podcast I do.
Yep.
Where people mention Atomic Habits, and I've still never read it.
It's absolutely incredible.
Well, we've run for just about an hour, so we should probably go after my mess up. Do you want to finish off and say anything to close? Do you want to plug anything? Yeah,
so what I always like to end these conversations with is based on a concept called the locus of control. So the locus of control is a psychological concept where it can be either external or internal, and it relates to how much control people think they have over how their life turns out. If it's external, you think that life just happens to you. You're a passenger in the car. If it's internal, then you believe that you're responsible for how your life is going and how your future will turn out. You're more like the driver of the car. My main message with what I do is telling people you have far more control over your life and your environment and your future than you think that you do. And once you become aware of that, once you accept responsibility for all these things, then you gain control over all these things. So take responsibility for yourself and you'll gain more control than you've ever realized that you've had.
Wow, that's a powerful way to end. Do you end every conversation like that?
I try to, when given the opportunity, yes.
Cheers, man. This has been awesome. We'll definitely have to do this again.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Speak to you again soon.